What's up, people? It's G, and we are back in the building. Yes, we are here. And today we are taking a look at the Liverpool midfield trio. Now, obviously, we've signed a couple of players during the summer. As you can see, the 4 signings that we've obviously made. We've still got Curtis Jones. We've still got Bajcetic, who's injured. We've still got Thiago, who is also injured in the team. Trent Alexander-Arnold to come in there. So many different types of players. But today I just kind of wanted to just a little chat with you guys, just to kind of ask, what do you guys think is, Liverpool's best midfield trio? Who would you like to see, moving forward in the season? Would it change due to competition, opponent, all these kind of different things? Let me know, obviously, what you guys think in the chat. Make sure you're obviously smashing that like button. Please make sure you do, of course, share this content out. We are trying to get the content rolling in as we push closer and closer to that millionth subscriber. But guys, please make sure you stay tuned for the video. Let me know all your thoughts and comments as well. Please drop them in, and I will get back to everybody as quickly as I can. Let's get into it.
Now you know I'm coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep feeling in love.
So yes, we are back in the damn building, people. Hope you guys are obviously doing well. Thank you for everybody who is, of course, tuned into today's video. As I said, we're obviously taking a look at Liverpool midfield. Who do we think should be, as you can see, scored across the bottom there. Who do you guys think should be Liverpool's, starting midfield? It was something that kind of popped into my head really over the last couple of months, especially because I thought maybe by now we would have, a starting midfield. We would have, would I say, the players that we feel, okay, at our best, this is our midfield 3, whether it be Szoboszlai, with McAllister, Curtis Jones, whether it be Gravenberch in there, Endo's been thrown in there, Harvey Elliott's been thrown in there. There's been so many different types of players and so many different kind of things, being thrown in at people. So really, it was just to kind of take a look, if I'm being totally honest, at who do we feel could potentially be, the best midfield trio. Now, of course, most of you are going to say, listen, man, it's a long season at the end of the day, and we're in so many different competitions. So, of course, for certain competitions, it's going to change regardless of it. Like Carabao Cup, FA Cup, you're going to play a different kind of midfield 3. But I'm really talking more about the Premier League when I look at it now. Obviously, it's still early in the Premier League. We've just played, our 16th game of the season. Obviously, Liverpool are currently top of the league as well. So, all of that kind of good stuff. So, in that kind of space, it's okay at this moment in time. And we've been rotating quite a lot. Now, that's obviously good. And I think this is something that I mentioned before as well, in regards to, how the team is going to be. I think this season, we're okay in terms of we can get away with all of this now. Rotating players, not really having a settled side, some players coming in, some players being dropped, and etc. I think we'd be okay in that kind of regards. My issue, obviously, and again, this is more of a later issue, so nothing would I say. Well, right now, clearly, it's not really an urgent need at this moment in time because, as I said, Liverpool are top, both Europa League and the Premier League. So clearly it's working. And I think this is just all to do really with preference. Again, just preference based. This isn't fact based. This isn't, whatever. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't know how the season's going to end. So again, I can't speak from that kind of nature. But when I am looking at it in terms of the Liverpool team, one of the things that I always liked about, Manchester City was you never really knew who was going to play. Obviously, there's the obvious players like the Edisons and the Haalands if he's fit and stuff like that. But midfield and kind of probably more so defense, I would probably say. If everyone's fit for Manchester City, so Kevin De Bruyne back, Rodri in there, and blah, 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 then midfield might pick itself, so to speak. Obviously, some games will be changed up, but it was more the defense. You used to always look at their defense and think, well, 1 week Jones is in there, Kanji's in there. Obviously, now they've got Vardio in there. Ake might play. Diaz is in there as well. Sometimes, Kevin De Bruyne in midfield last season was being dropped to the bench. It's for Bernardo Silva to potentially play. Foden is potentially going to be thrown in there. Grealish out there on the wing. Obviously, now they got Ndoku. Riyad Mahrez is obviously gone. They're having to chop and change it, but they're utilizing the squad. Again, quality players. System, they understand it. Players can just kind of come in and out, and it's not really too much of an issue. That's kind of what I wanted Liverpool to kind of get to, and we've kind of seen it a little bit here now. In terms of being able to rotate certain midfield, mainly because it's a brand new midfield as well. But we're kind of seeing that this season, where certain players are not always playing. Obviously you got your staples in terms of maybe Szoboszlai might always play, but is it going to be Jones? Is it going to be Endo? Is it going to be McAllister? Is Harvey Elliott going to jump in? I guess that really chops and changes more so when we've got like Europa League football and stuff like that, which again, absolutely fine with. I've got, no real problem, with that, so to speak. But well, maybe not now. And again, Klopp might already have the answers, and again, this video might just be, very premature. But I do look at it a little bit and think rotating is fine, but you should still have a base. And at the moment, where the midfield is so new, I don't think we have a settled midfield, so to speak. And because the fact that it is new, that, in my opinion, then causes not problems. Again, we're top of the league, and this is just more nitpicking, if anything. To be honest, how can we go to the next level, because we're not obviously there yet? But how can we go to that next level, which can help us sustain more than anything? I think that's where my PTSD comes into it. I'm never that really worried with Liverpool on a single season by season basis in terms of maintaining. Obviously, other than last season being so shit, other than that, we are able to maintain a competitive nature and challenge and stuff like that. I'm not really worried about that. It's how do you win and sustain, though? That's something Liverpool have never been able to do in this last 30 years, is being able to sustain winning. How do you stay at the top? Now, some people say signings, some people say, we need to get in a number 6, some people say, we need in the centre back, or whatever it may be. People obviously, have got their own thoughts and opinions behind it. Absolutely fine. And, I think it's all true, to be honest with you, in terms of being able to maintain being at the top. But when I'm looking like this season, I think being in the Europa League, and I've mentioned this before, has helped us massively, because I don't believe if Liverpool were in the Champions League, we'd be rotating as much. I think we've seen it. I've never once seen it, since Jurgen Klopp has been here, since we've been in the Champions League, where he's done the rotation thing as much as he's done it in the Europa League. The level of quality in the Europa League is absolutely atrocious, bar maybe 1 or 2 teams, Liverpool being the 1 team, and then potentially, a 2 being someone else. And I think that when I'm looking at it, where you're able to chop and change, and it's almost like I mentioned before, like a Carabao Cup kind of vibe, and it's like, yeah, I'll just play this guy and that guy and blah, 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 and, sprinkle a couple of first team players and things like that, where you're able to do things like that, that's allowed for certain players to play. So in defense, you've got Jarell Quansah, who's been able to really, make a mark this season. Now Matip is injured. He's able to, throw himself in the midfield. Endo's been able to get some games. Gravenberch, who hadn't started, obviously, the season, with us, so to speak, obviously started really with Bayern Munich and then came to us. He's been able to get a few games. Harvey Elliott, he's been able to start in those games in the Europa League, come off the bench. It's helped in that kind of, regards, and also helped with certain players to gain some level of rhythm. I don't believe that's going to happen next season, because you don't chop and change in the Champions League. The quality in there is far greater than it is in the Europa League. So you're not going to be able to do so, and then obviously still try and remain that level of competitiveness in the Premier League. You're still going to want to kind of maintain a balance, so to speak. So again, excuse me, that's probably more of a later issue, but when I am looking this season, I am looking and I am thinking to myself, okay, cool. Who would we say is, Liverpool's best midfield 3, if I'm being totally honest? And if I just get this up here, let's take a look. Let's take a look at this. Cool. So hopefully you guys can see this on your screen. screens. Let's have a look. Yeah, cool. So obviously on the screen right now, you guys can see you've got McAllister, Curtis Jones, and Szoboszlai. I would say if everybody's fit, that's probably the midfield three that he would like to. He would kind of like to go with, you know, if he had a choice, you know, I think that's the one he would go with. Now, sometimes it might be, you know, he might throw in, you know, a Gravenberch in there. You know, we know that McAllister obviously being injured, so Endo might then, you know, get himself thrown in there. Elliot, I don't really think so. I feel like Szoboszlai will kind of always play, but for me, I'm not too fussed with that. Obviously, some games, yeah, you need to be rested and stuff like that, and some competitions you don't always necessarily need to play. But I don't feel like we have that kind of quality in that right central midfield. Now, even on someone like an Elliot, when I look at him, people obviously, you know, a lot of people have spoken about Elliot recently. He got the winning goal at the weekend and blah, blah, blah. That for me is Elliot's role. That's the kind of player he is. He's an impact player, impact sub. He's not a starter in this midfield. Now, obviously, Endo played in the game against Crystal Palace. If you obviously saw my match ratings, I didn't really feel like he played that well in the game. Obviously, then got himself hooked off at half time. You know, it was a poor performance really by the whole midfield, not just him. Gravenberch maybe possibly being the shining light, so to speak, you know, in terms of this was the midfield three that played. But in a general sense, the midfield was generally poor. But when we're looking at someone like an Endo, again, because he plays in that sixth position, and we've got McAllister who obviously plays there, who's not your traditional number six in terms of whatever it is that people want a number six to do. We just don't feel that McAllister is the one doing that to an adequate enough level. And we've seen what Endo can do. And we feel that maybe with a bit more game time, he might be able to grow into a role like that. That then leaves questions for that left central midfield spot and the right central midfield spot. Again, right, maybe not so much because Dominic Szoboszlai is obviously always there, but some of these other players, I feel like they are more backup players. So my question is, one, of course, who would you guys like to see if we're playing it doesn't have, I know ends don't like it, but if we're playing a final tomorrow, who's your midfield three? If we with the players that we've currently got, who's the midfield three you'd be most comfortable with going into that game? I understand some players go out of form, so some players do need to be rested, chopped and changed and stuff like that. My thing is that at some point there does need to be a stability within that. You know what I mean? Like there does need to be, okay, well, these are the three. Everyone else will be rotated as and when we need it to be rotated. Obviously, the games might start getting less. We may get knocked out of competitions like the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup. If we do get knocked out of those, then of course games become less and less. Players might not always get that ability to shine and the ability to showcase themselves. So then it might chop and change then. So again, like I said, I could just be talking out my ass right now and it might just change in the near future. But when I am looking at it, I don't feel like, let me not say 9 times out of 10, 7 to 8 times out of 10, when I'm looking at the chopping and changing of midfield and even the subs, I never look at it and think this is a tactical reason why you're doing it. It always seems to be quite reactionary, or it usually just seems to be, well, he's just playing shit. I never feel like it's done because of, oh, maybe we need this guy, whoever, Elliot, as an example. You know what, Szoboszlai, you're not doing what Elliot can do, for example, whatever that might be, however you see it, or Gakpo goes into that midfield area, or Curtis Jones come off the whatever. I usually think it's, he's just playing shit, so we just need to put someone else on. Well, you can play that position. Okay, then you go into that position, and then we can obviously, go from there. Not all the time. Like I said, not all the time. There has been some times where I felt, oh, that was a tactical sub. I just don't feel like it's more often than not though. And that's just my own personal opinion. And even when we are changing some players who start and whatnot, for example, you've got Gravenberch in there who's played the last game and Curtis Jones not playing. I don't think that's a tactical thing. Obviously, we'll look at what Curtis Jones can do and we look at what Gravenberch can do, and then obviously apply the analysis in terms of the game state itself. But I don't look at it as, well, that was a tactical reason. I just look at it as, well, this guy's just off form, so we're going to have to play this guy because he's the only other guy who can play that position. McAllister played in the left central midfield position in the previous game before that, before the Palace game. So I don't feel like it's all tactical. Again, there are some games, yes, I will concede and say, yes, it is tactical. That's the reason why he's done this. That's the reason why he's done that, etc., etc. But as an overall, I don't look at it like that. And again, That might just be me being pessimistic. We already know my beef that I've got with Jurgen Klopp, but I will give Klopp credit at times when he's made certain subs and the subs have happened to score. Whether he believed that this was always going to happen, probably doubtful, but it's happened, and you're like, okay, that's great. The subs have done their job because subs are supposed to come on and make some type of impact in whatever way in regards to context of their position. Not a problem. But when I do look at certain things, I am looking at it and I think to myself, yeah, I don't know. I feel like you just took him up because he was shit. I remember the Wolves game. Liverpool, absolutely one of the worst first halves that we've played, probably alongside this one that we had against Crystal Palace, that we have played. And he ended up taking off McAllister. It wasn't tactical. He took off McAllister. He took off because he was shit. He could have taken off any one of that midfield three. He just happened to choose McAllister because of what Szoboszlai can do, on the pitch. It was probably best that he stayed on the pitch, and McAllister looked like he couldn't run anymore. What's the only other thing you can do? If you're playing Football Manager and you see a guy is playing on, I don't know, four in terms of his rating, and he's at 50% tiredness and all this kind of stuff, then you're going to take him off. It's not tactical. You're just like, I need to take him off because I just need to take him off because he's just not performing. He looks tired. He looks leggy, etc., etc. And that's how I've kind of looked at some of the subs, not all of the subs, just some of the subs that Jurgen Klopp has made this season. Some have been tactical and have been good, and I will definitely give Klopp credit in some of the situations that I've seen. But yeah, as an overall, I don't look at it. I don't, because Klopp isn't really that type of manager, in my personal opinion. So I don't feel like he really has that much in him in that kind of regards. And that's not really to even try and slate him, because when it's worked, it's worked. It's just more context, in my opinion, sometimes does need to be applied. And we're seeing it with some of these, as I mentioned, some of these players who are now playing. Endo starting, obviously McAllister being was injured or picked up that injury. Gravenberch obviously starting in there. They both do two different things. So I'm sitting there thinking, is it because you really like what this player can do and you want that in the team, or is it because Curtis Jones has kind of been a little bit out of form? So maybe we just need something else in there now. So we're going to try this guy again. It's fine to do now. I haven't got a problem, so to speak, with it. Again, like I said, maybe my PTSD then jumps into it, because then I'm like, ooh, okay, maybe it's a situation of we may potentially need some form of stability, because at some point you do need to create some type of, cohesion, within the midfield, especially because it's a new midfield. You know what I mean? Like, it's because it's a new midfield. That's why sometimes I do feel like, okay, you do maybe just need to just have some type of stability. Like, I just feel like there is none. It's free for all. Obviously, it's the early part of the season. 16 games been played. Europa League campaign. Obviously, it's the group stages, so this is a shitty part. Nothing's really going on during this kind of period in terms of the teams that we're facing and stuff like that. So we can experiment, and maybe this guy plays and that guy plays, and let's see what this is, let's see what that is. After come January times, I feel like there will come that point where it's like, okay, this is the run-in. So these are the players I want playing in this competition, as an example, and then these are the players I want playing potentially in that competition. All of these different kind of things. I think that's where all of that may come into. But just at the moment, that's why I wanted to ask you guys, who do you guys feel should be our midfield starting trio? Or who would you like, should I say? Maybe the two are different. I don't know. But who would you like, to possibly be, the midfield trio? If I stop sharing that, and if I show you guys the stats from this season, let's get up Skooks. Let's get up my man Skooks. Boom. Okay. So obviously this is just Premier League, and it hasn't got every midfielder in there. I don't know if you guys want to count Trent in there as a midfielder as well, but yep, he's another one to put in there. So obviously I've got Szoboszlai, McAllister, Jones, Endo, and Gravenberch. Obviously we can put in what's his name, Trent Alexander-Arnold as well. But I just wanted to keep it at the moment just ones who are more listed as midfielders. I would still list Trent as a right back or as a defender, so to speak, for the time being. But we can see here, again, I don't want to go too deep diving into it, but these are just the kind of different stats and maybe even some of the good things about each and every individual, and why it might actually be genuinely difficult. Again, I don't know the answer in terms of who should. I'll give you my answer in terms of who I would put as my midfield three if I had to pick a three. But when I'm just looking at it now, each person offers you something different. And I think that's obviously the good thing. You got Szoboszlai, who's the industrial one out of everybody, can do a bit of everything. He can attack, he can defend, you know, he can do all of that kind of good stuff. You've got McAllister in there. He's probably the one I would look at and say, we're not using him correctly, in my opinion, but he's probably the more, and I don't want to make this sound weird, but he's the kind of the cute one in there. And when I say that, I mean in terms of how he can play, you know, the things that he can do, you know, on the pitch. You know, he can play those kind of passes that maybe not everyone in there can see. He can dribble really well. He's good under pressure and stuff like that. Curtis Jones, again, another one who's decent under pressure. He is a bit more defensive minded than he is attack minded. Won't always get himself into the final third and stuff like that. He likes to keep the ball, retain possession, plays it very, very safe, you know, I would say. Endo, he's the defensive midfielder. He is the one, you know, when you're looking at having a 6 in there, he likes to break up play, but he's also decent at progressive passes, you know, and getting the ball forward to the forward players to do their thing. You know, he's pretty decent at doing that. And then Gravenberch, he's the one, probably, in my opinion, running with the ball. He's the best at it out of all the midfielders there. And if you want to include Trent Alexander-Arnold, I haven't included Bajcetic and Thiago, haven't played this, or haven't really, Bajcetic played one game, but they haven't played this season, so I can't really include them right now. But they might be other ones who you may want to include. But when I am looking at Gravenberch, he's the best runner of the ball, running with the ball player that we've got in there, can drive the ball forward. I've said it before, he reminds me of Paul Pogba when Pogba was at Juventus. They're so similar in what they can do, you know, in terms of dribbling ability, close ball control, can pass the ball, long passes, short passes, finding pockets of spaces, you know, making sure that they are available to every player, every phase of play, you know, decent with their back towards goal as well. He reminds me of that type of player, you know, and I think, you know, he will have a bright future, you know, moving forward. But look, you guys can obviously see here, if I just get up on my screen, yeah. Obviously, games played, and Jones actually with the least amount, to be fair. Obviously, injury and suspension playing a part in that. Touches, we can see McAllister gets the most touches out of all of these players named here. Next is obviously then Szoboszlai, then Jones. Oh no, Szoboszlai, and then Endo actually, who's actually third on the list, and then Jones, and then Gravenberch. Obviously, these guys are making sub appearances and stuff, so context does, of course, need to be applied with this. You can see again, Szoboszlai, he's making the most ball recoveries out of everyone there. Then next up is actually McAllister, and then closely followed by Gravenberch, which is quite interesting to see. And then Jones is making more than Endo. Chances created, Szoboszlai is making more chances, 2.2. Next on the list would then be Gravenberch. Again, are we surprised? Probably not so, because of the positions of the other three players. Passes attempted, it's McAllister who's coming out on top, who is then closely followed by Endo, who I can understand and see why, because Endo does make a lot of passes when he does get the ball. So it makes sense whilst he would be there. Let's look at some other stats as well. What else we got here? Through balls attempted, McAllister's winning that one, 0.6. Next up is then Curtis Jones, which is quite interesting, attempting that many through balls. Endo, none. And then Gravenberch and Szoboszlai on 0.2. Passes completed in own half. Am I surprised? No, not really. Again, it makes sense that McAllister and Endo would be the higher ones. Would be the higher ones in that regards anyway, because of the position that they play. Short passes completed. McAllister again coming out on top. Tackles made, 2.6 for McAllister. This is all per 90, by the way. Then tackles made 2.6, and then obviously followed up by Curtis Jones. And then obviously next is Endo, and then Gravenberch and Szoboszlai are on the same amount. Aerial duels contested. Crazy that Endo is the one there, you know. Feel like between him and, I don't know who's taller between him and McAllister, but it's just mad that he's actually contesting more than the rest of these guys. I find that quite an achievement, but he seems to be someone who's really good at when it comes to aerial duels, in terms of, he might not win all of them. I don't know what the statistics are in that regards, but he seems to be someone who's always up for a challenge, like always. I always see him trying to get up for headers and things like that. So, you know, kudos to him in that regard. Ground duels contested. I like this one's always interesting to me. Curtis Jones coming out on top, 11.4. Then closely followed by Endo, who's on 10.7. Then McAllister on 10.5. then actually Gravenberch is doing more than Szoboszlai. So again, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Is that, but Szoboszlai, of course, this is all Premier League games. Is Szoboszlai kind of, we've seen him in the last few recent weeks. Should he be playing? Should he be starting games? He's not really been performing well. McAllister obviously picked up an injury. Should he then be playing in the sixth position? We know that's not his natural position. Curtis Jones, again, in that left central midfield side. Is he the one that should be playing in that area? He's had a fantastic end to last season. Started this season okay, but then he's kind of tailored off a bit. Endo not really had too many chances. Chances he's had, obviously, in the Europa League, he's done decent. In the Premier League, he's been okay. Still looks a little bit off it. So again, question marks there. Gravenberch has done okay. He's done okay in some games and really good in other games. He's had decent cameos, but again, can't really complete 90 minutes. It looks like he does get a little bit tired. It looks like his abilities start to wane off a little bit, once he gets into kind of full flow. So again, where do we look? And then, of course, we can't forget about Trent Alexander-Arnold. We can't forget about him also being in the mix as well. We know he plays in that right back position, in that inverted role, but is that maybe just for the time being? Maybe we can put, someone like Joe Gomez there for the time being, and then maybe you have Trent moving into that sixth position. We saw in the game at the weekend, Gomez went into that right back slot, and then Trent went into that sixth position. To be honest, he was basically playing there anyway, because those are the areas that he was picking up the ball. He might start off on the right sometimes, but then he likes to move in. Even when he's trying to receive the ball, he's receiving the ball in that sixth position anyway. So I'm thinking maybe that's just what he wants to do. Maybe that's what the manager, kind of wants him to do, as well. But you've got, Trent Alexander-Arnold there, and then of course Bajcetic and Thiago to come at a later time. But we'll look at them, when they're kind of closer to returning. So there's a lot of questions. There are a lot of questions. All these guys, they offer you something different. I think, especially when we look at, a lot of people keep talking about, Liverpool don't need this. Or sorry, some people have said, do Liverpool need a six? Some people are saying we do need a six, so there's been that kind of battle, would I say, recently, with Liverpool fans in terms of, well, we're top of the league, top of the Europa League, through to the next round of the Europa League, obviously through to the Carabao Cup, FA Cup to come in January, where do we need this number six? And I think, again, that's another debate for another day. But I feel like that all depends on what you're asking for from your number six, because what you're asking for, you may already have at the football club. We all seem to want. At first, it seemed like we wanted a destroyer. We wanted someone who can break up play and blah, blah, blah. Technically, we got that in Endo. He just needs to kind of get up with the pace of the game. So if that's then the case and you want someone who's able to break up play, then you've kind of already got that. If you want a guy who can play a bit of football and maybe break up play a little bit, you've kind of got that in McAllister anyway. He's not the best at it, but he can kind of do that job. If you just want someone who's a dictator, so to speak, you've got Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's not really going to be the one breaking up play or anything like that. But if you're looking like almost like a Pirlo type of player, in terms of, I'm not here to do that dogged work. I'm not here to do, be crunching tackles and stuff, but ask me to find you on a sixpence, I've got you. And Trent, as we know, can obviously do that better than basically everybody, in world football right about now. So I think it all just kind of depends on the type of midfielder that you're currently looking for. It really does depend. Of course, different games will require potentially different types of players. So, that might come into the mix, but I think it will just generally come down to, again, like I said, just really what you're looking for. Me personally, I would go with, and this is if everybody's fit, and I'm not including Thiago and Bajcetic. I mean, with the players that are here now, if everybody was fit, I would go with this. So I'd have Ali in goal. Obviously Robertson. I would go Gomez. Go Van Dijk. I'm not going to include Matip in this. The injury. Let's go to the other positions first. I would go with. That'd be my team, to be honest with you. That's how I would kind of play it. Yeah, that's how I would go with it. Still, obviously the back four. Robertson obviously once comes back from injury. Van Dijk. I would have picked Matip instead, but he's got it looks like a season-ending, injury, so I can't really pick him. So I'll go with Kanate for the time being. And then Joe Gomez, I'd go in at right back. I would sign a different right back, but I would go in for the time being. Joe Gomez has been decent this season. Have to give the boy credit, so I would go with him in at that right back slot, and he offers you balance. Do you know what I mean? He offers you that balance that you probably would prefer in that kind of position. Then you got Trent. Allow Trent to be that Pirlo type of player. I don't think that Liverpool. I don't think not every team needs a destroyer. I don't feel like you need that. I feel like you've got the industry in Szoboszlai. That's your industry. That's your between the two of them, they can rotate in terms of what their roles would be. You know what I mean? And when I say rotate in terms of obviously you're trying to defend as a team anyway, but there's obviously going to be one more defensive minded. I feel like they can rotate between that because both players are good at getting forward anyway and getting themselves in those kind of areas. So if one did go, so if Trent decided to go, you got Szoboszlai who can chill there. And Szoboszlai can do that. He's got the work rate to be able to do that. You might not necessarily. Of course, he's not the best defensive midfielder. Of course not. There's way better defensive midfielders out there. I just don't feel that you always need a defensive midfielder. And I can only go with what we actually do have. That might change if we buy someone else, like a Fofana, for example. Then maybe I would put him there in that position. But currently, I would rather have Szoboszlai there because he is your midfield engine. He is the guy who can kind of fulfill quite a few roles. And again, can swap with Trent. Trent can then sit a bit deeper. And then he would be the guy who needs to be a bit more defensively switched on in certain areas. And then I'll have McAllister in that 10 position. I think that 10 position is made for someone like a McAllister. Don't get him doing all this defensive work and I need you to run back. No. He's the one who's going to find the passes. If you've got someone like Gakpo and Salah who want to play as like inside forwards, perfect. With someone like Diogo Jota, someone to finish, probably one of the most accurate striker that we've got in terms of putting the ball in the back of the net at a consistent rate. Outside Salah, of course, I'd probably say it's going to be Diogo Jota. I'm more confident in him than Gakpo and Nunes put together, so it's just about his availability, which is obviously going to be a problem. But if I'm looking at it in terms of the team, that's the kind of team that I would, perfectly go for. And I think both Trent and Szoboszlai are comfortable picking up the ball from defenders. Szoboszlai, again, can do the work rate thing. Trent likes to sit deep and obviously pick up the ball. So again, I feel like we'll be utilizing them at their best. And then McAllister in that 10 position, I feel like he can then do swaps with Gakpo, with a Salah, because both of them don't mind playing behind a striker anyway. Salah likes doing these kind of things and Gakpo can do those kind of things. So again, they can do that. And then if we do need to defend a little bit, McAllister, you just drop in, Gakpo, you just drop in. Now you got the four of them in there and you're almost just really going 4-4-2-ish. So to speak, in terms of whether you push Trent out to the right midfield, then you've got Szoboszlai and McAllister. So if I show you here, so whether, we might be defending, so to speak, and then you've got this kind of situation. I'll just move them in. Let me even move because I think it'll be more like that. So more like a 4-4-1-1 type of situation at times. Diogo Jota kind of being almost that kind of spare kind of guy, and obviously he can potentially swap and rotate with Mohamed Salah. Gakpo will obviously then help to tuck in a little bit. I think he'll be better defensively than a Luis Diaz. Going forward, I think they're both kind of equal in that kind of regards, but I think defensively Gakpo will be a better option, and I think he'll be able to work in the midfield area a lot better than Luis Diaz, should I say? And I just think we've got options to be able to do so. But if you're asking me what would be my team, that would inevitably be my team. But guys, let me know. What do you guys think? Who would be your midfield trio? Who would be the guys that you guys would like to see? I'll leave that on the screen, obviously, for you. That's my midfield three. Dominic, 4-2-3-1. Dominic Szoboszlai with Trent next to him in that pivot position, with McAllister playing just further ahead of them. with Gakpo, Salah, and Diogo Jota. Let me know, of course, what you guys think. Who would you want to see there? Let me know. Maybe am I talking at my arse? Maybe there's someone else you'd like to see us play there. And again, we can do the rotation. We can do, maybe you want to put in Gravenberch in for whatever. We can go back into an actual 3. There's so many different things and so many different ways that we can potentially do things. And I think, yeah, we can do those in other games. But if I'm asking for my strongest team, I feel like this is a way that Liverpool can and should be going forward. And I think it will take us up a level as well, especially when we potentially go out in January and sign potentially a couple more players. But guys, let me know what you think in the comment sections. I'm G. That's today's video done and dusted, and we are out.